You may be wondering what I mean by the exorcism obsession. The exorcism obsession is the obsession over a particular understanding of the devil that seems to be propagated through Hollywood, propagated through many mainstream churches, propagated by many interested Christians in the spread of the occult and the phenomena of demonic possession, and finally by many entertainment and looky-loo people who think it's a very flashy and extraordinary thing. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to the demonic is very much a hidden movement. It is not something that simply comes once in a blue moon and possesses someone. It is right behind you. It is hidden in plain sight. And that's what my discussion for this Saturday will be about: the misunderstanding and confusion on the demonic and how it is really affecting us. There was a talk on Utopiana, which is another show I'm on this channel, which you guys should check out. I'll link in the description. If you're also interested in another talk about this, it's called Dealing with the Devil. And in this particular episode, I'm going to be discussing the very significant importance of referring to the devil as Lucifer. The way to find the demonic is very simply to trace the common root sins of people in today's society, the seven deadly sins. I'm sure many people do know what those are. And to remind ourselves that where sin is, the devil abounds, especially deadly sin. And simply from that, we can trace and infer back as to how the demonic works. After all, when someone's getting an exorcism, they're in a much better place than someone who isn't. That is because they must draw close to God through what the priest prescribes for their condition, and they often have to pray more and attend the sacraments more in order to eventually be rid of the demonic hold. In most people's lives, there seems to be no regard at all for the supernatural, or if there is no understanding of morality, and there is a great social narcissism where people are too scared to address their own selfishness and their selfish desires. Because of that, the demonic reigns free and is much, much more dangerous because of unhindered, unrepentant sin. It is not because there aren't enough simply exorcists around, or because he is a rare occurrence, almost like some kind of tooth fairy that shows up once in a blue moon and shows up around the same level of probability as lightning striking someone. It's quite the opposite. That is an extraordinary event where the demonic is actually exposed for once and has truly been caught red handed by God and his angels and is scooped up out of there from ruining someone's life. But in most cases, due to the acceptance of the occult, the sympathy for the devil, the rampant, just complete ignorance on how dangerous sin is, despite the very miserable lives people live, the blindness there, the demonic is all around us. So in this episode, we will talk about why the devil is misunderstood, and we'll also talk about how the idea of Lucifer, the fallen angel of light, is much more horrific than the current mainstream understanding of the devil, which is Satan, the guy with hooves and horns, and he's scary. That is one aspect of the devil, and yet usually refers to the devil unmasked when the damned are thrown into hell. The devil doesn't usually want to appear like that unless he's scaring someone and trying to traumatize them from praying, which most people aren't do. The devil usually shows up as Lucifer, the tempter, right? And why is he more horrific than Satan? Well, if you really look at vanity and pride, which is his main essence, and there are many other demons, of course, that are behind the other sins. But if you look at pride, and this is just an example of the different things I'll be talking about, you can see how much power he has. Because if the devil reigns over pride, and that is where his power is, then he simply reigns over all peoples because we all have pride, regardless of political, religious, social affiliation and status. We all have some kind of vanity. Now, in some cases worse than others, I'm not into false equivalency, but think about it. How many times, let's say, have you gossiped or pointed your finger at someone in your head or outside to make you feel better about yourself, to exalt yourself, right? How many times have you told yourself excuses for something your conscience is telling you not to because you know better, and you've already discarded the whole idea of a guardian angel and a shoulder devil, so you really don't care? Or how many times have you believed that the ends justify the means? Whether it be a particular um, political affiliation, right? And especially if it's something that's a trendy opinion. How many times have you gone along with it because you are completely infatuated with a particular utopia, a particular idea where the ends justify the means? Um, right? And how many times have you seen, in no matter what group of people there are, just great vanity and hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is a big sign of the devil. Confusion. We have it in ourselves, okay? We have that little bit of poison that the devil reigns in. Now, does he control our sin and the devil made us do it? No, but he definitely has done a great impact, and I'm definitely sure he's working to try to increase, to create those in his own image in order to, I don't know, he's a narcissist. He likes feeling powerful, right? And in looking at the horrific, evil, narcissistic nature of the devil, we can see a glimpse as to how awful of a person and how dangerous a person he is. There's also, not only is there self-righteousness and intellectual arrogance, there's also sheer physical and internal beauty. Imagine someone who has access to incomprehensible beauty. We know celebrities, right? So that's why there's celebrity culture, because these are good-looking people and they're charismatic. Imagine someone who completely exemplifies that to the point where he can get away with it all because he's just so full of himself. He's totally intoxicating and intoxicated with himself. And he's extremely clever. Someone who is that but has no charity, humility, or anything that builds people up other than himself, but who's very good at pretending he's virtuous, wise, and who is very beautiful on the superficial, but will manipulate, the ultimate manipulator, manipulation incarnate. Imagine the most beautiful person you can possibly think of, inside and out, but with this, but only using that power and beauty and wisdom for himself or herself, and trying to become the ultimate life form at the expense of whatever else or whoever else is in the way. It's very hard to imagine this, but through sin, we can imagine this. So please come out to this discussion if you're interested in my take on the demonic and why I think we've got it so wrong, and why I think horror movies have gotten it so wrong. He's not just a standard monster. Is he a standard monster in the sense, is he horrific? Is there a side to him that looks like a Lovecraftian monster or the Exorcist? Yeah, I do believe there is that side of him, but I don't think that's the scariest part of him. Um, lastly, we will talk about the other sins and how, through looking at that darkness and how the sins are intertwined, we can see a glimpse of true Christianity in looking at the opposite of evil. And it's very important because there are too many people that are religious that have a prideful mask. And then they push people away through their pride and create other forms of narcissists who are self righteous and destructive, but they are rebellious, so they do the opposite. You know, um, is it possible for a bad Christian to push someone into atheism or the occult or just some kind of rebellion? Yes, right? And is it possible for a rebel, a person who's supposedly against anything stopping freedom, to become an even worse tyrant than the people they supposedly hate? Yes. And is it possible for there to be an entity manipulating both behind the scenes? Yes. Another great example, and I think I'll end with this, something I'm teaching in my English classes. I think the ultimate example of the demonic, even though it isn't explicitly said if it was a demonic entity, if it was, the most accurate would be the behavior of the characters and the voice known as the beast in the famous novel The Lord of the Flies, a very wise novel on human nature. So that's the kind of things we'll be talking about on the show. Please come out, and God bless.